Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 121 of DM Discussions, the podcast for players and DMs alike, where we cover a wide variety of topics to help you with your games. I'm your host, Ryan Reeder, and with me, as always, is my good buddy, Ben Bumhofer. How are you doing tonight, Ben?
You know what? I'm in a good place. I put some Legos together yesterday, so I'm nice and centered and calm. And got a chance to play some Dungeons and Dragons. So you know what? I'm as best as I
uncentered and uncalmed
possibly
you,
be.
but was super exciting.
Yeah, well, I did the Legos afterwards, so it totally worked out.
Oh, it zened you out. Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, and
I'm
now
actually putting together some. Have you seen like the Lego flower?
Oh
sets?
yeah, those are great.
I'm putting together. Yeah, I'm putting together one of those right now.
Nice,
It's
very
very
good.
nice.
Yeah, I put together the small scale Tantive 4. So
Nice.
yeah, in fact, I've got it right in front of my camera. So look at this. Whoa.
For those of you who can't see, because this is a podcast, it looks really cool, and it's Star Warsy.
Yep. And then I also knocked over Strahd.
No, not Strahd.
Oh yeah, he fell over.
Lego Strahd. Oh, so cool. So yeah, we're back. We're excited. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about because tis the season for the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. And
Yes.
as of last week, information started rolling. They started the hype train, the marketing for the new Dungeon Master's Guide that's coming out in about a few weeks at this point. So we got some cool news for the overview of the Dungeon Master's Guide. They talked a little bit more about the Bastion system, which I'm actually extremely excited for, especially considering that my campaign is currently taking place in a very large city.
Yeah.
And so it's literally the perfect place for a Bastion-like system to be able to flourish and grow, and the players to be able to take full advantage of it. So I'm very excited about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how the 2024 Player's Handbook deals with subclasses and having everything standardized at level 3. So we're going to talk a little bit over that and give some tips and tricks for that and starting characters out. But first, let's talk a little bit about the Dungeon Master's Guide. So this book is releasing general release on November 12th. So we've got just a little over a month before this comes out. And it's got several different chapters based on the different things you can do. And from the very beginning, it was like a 40-some minute video. It was a pretty chunky video, but they kind of went through and explained there's a lot of good stuff in the current Dungeon Master's Guide, but they self-admitted it's very scattered and incredibly difficult to find. Like they admitted the book is very poorly laid out. And as someone who has read the whole thing, and then people told me things that were in it and I didn't remember them, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's a video, it covers a lot, and you know what? If you have a cat meowing at you for about 10 seconds of it, you might miss a really big key point. So even though we're going to talk about it, we are going to have a link to the video in our show notes, and I recommend you take a look at it just because there is a bunch of really cool stuff that we're going to be getting in about a month, like you said.
Yeah. So they talked about how it's going to be differently laid out. So now it's going to go through in the beginning a lot of how to actually do a campaign. And not only talk about how to do a campaign, but also, and this I think is a really big thing, give you examples of how to make a campaign. In fact, they said there are going to be 5 examples of just little one-shot type things, spanning several different levels, starting from very low and going a little higher. And these examples, they said, are just like half a page of text that give you a nice framework for running an adventure, a short adventure. And I absolutely love this because if you've been listening with us for a while, you remember back when we shouted out one of Matt Colville's videos. where he was talking about how things had gotten in his mind way too long. Like
Yeah.
these adventure modules that are coming out that are 128, 200 pages, even 64 pages, right?
Hmm.
Are incredibly meaty, but they are meant to guide you to a long-term campaign. And very often, many players or groups will not have the time for or be together for a multi-year campaign. Multi-year campaigns are not the norm
No, definitely not.
at all. But almost all these adventures, these modules that are being released officially seem to be geared toward you're going to be probably be playing this for 6+ months. So I love the idea that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the thing that we want to be recommending to brand new DMs to kind of kickstart them and get them going, they're showing, hey, here's a little one-shot thing. The entirety of this fits on a page. Now, obviously, there's stat blocks and there's maps that probably that will go along with it that will add, a few pages or whatever. But we're talking about an extremely contained thing that you can read over in a half hour and then be able to run, or at least have a fairly good idea of how to run it. And they've set these up so that you can go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next if you want to. Um, and so I really like this because I think this kind of leans more towards that. Okay, not everything has to be gigantic. Not everything has to be a 6+ month affair. You can run these shorter things or these pick up and play type things. They're fairly easy to do. Here's the building blocks. Here's the framework for it. Now go for it, right?
Hmm.
And in that and in that vein, they are also providing for the first time a full campaign setting within the DMG. In this case, the world of Greyhawk, which is one of the OGs from a D&D perspective. And what they're doing is they're going to provide an entire chapter on Greyhawk, the setting, kind of like the overview again. And they mention this a lot of time, the framework, right? It's like, here's these major cities, here's these major landmarks, maybe these major locations, but they said they've been wanting to do it in such a way that you can get a great idea of what the world is, but then make it yours.
Yeah. So
And that was kind of the big theme.
one of the neat things about the adventures too is that, I mean, there's something that you can just use to just kind of slot into your game as well. So it's not just, only for just, first level adventure or, very beginning and stuff like that. But on top of that too, the way that it's kind of worked, the way that it's written, and this is kind of a theme for like the running the games chapters and stuff. From what they've said, they present it in such a way that they think is the best way to run D&D. So it's not just like, okay, well, this is what you do. Here's your framework, throw it together. It's, they're going to, from at least from what I took from the video, they're going to be putting in hints saying, maybe set the tone this way or talk about this, giving you all those kind of levels of what you need to do for prep. And I mean, I don't think they said it specifically, but my guess would be like kind of performance, because in a sense, you're going to be performing how these things play out and bringing your players along with you in them. And they're giving you all the tools that they possibly can to, teach you how to do all that stuff. So with that, the fact that they put in Greyhawk in there as, a campaign setting, and they're starting out small, starting with the city. And then as you kind of, progress through that, going into the larger area around it, then, again, expanding further out. They give you a map, they have, a couple points of interest and everything, but they really do want you to make it your own. So that means, adding in your own like goblin camp, or in these mountains you're going to find a white dragon, like throw in your own thing, because not only do they want you to, kind of learn how to use like a module or something that's written, but to also expand upon it and grow it and really be, a DM. Because how many times have we talked about or heard about something where, someone's running the module, but, it might not be a thing that their players are fully invested in, or there's places that they found lacking so that they added to it or accentuated it or really made it their own, where you still have the bare bones there, but you're still putting in, you know, your own spin and take on everything. So just based off of the adventures and Greyhawk, and then just their kind of first couple chapters in here, it seems like this is really succeeding where the 2014 DMG had really no help at all, where that was just a book
Yeah.
of rules. This one is a, hey, here's actually how to play and run a game.
Yeah. And then it continues in that vein. I believe they said it was chapter 3.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a whole video on this. So we'll probably talk more in depth about this next episode coming soon. But they called it the DM's toolbox, or the DM's toolkit, where it's just going to be a chapter of all the miscellaneous, like niche scenario type things that might happen. Like
Mhm.
they said, like siege engines, traps, environmental effects,
Poisons.
poisons, all those sorts of extra things that may not come up on a session to session basis, but are very important when they are needed, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Everything.
think that's actually, to me, that's one of the most, as an experienced DM,
Mhm.
that's actually one of the most exciting chapters.
Yeah, and something that they said is that a lot of what's in that chapter has been in the 2014 book, but it was scattered all over the place. So actually going in and really finding what you needed was incredibly hard to do. So by putting everything together, I mean, and it's apparently like all alphabetized and sorted and everything. So it's going to be a really great reference guide that I'm actually just stoked to get in there and try and make heads and tails of everything, because every DM who isn't super familiar with every single page of the DMG just kind of runs some things just on the fly. Like, best example I can think of, even Matt Mercer, when someone fell into some lava and he's all like, okay, some fire damage, not knowing that there's actually lava rules in the book, and it was way more than that player should have had, or yeah, like way more than they actually took, and everything. And then something like that, I would assume, would probably be in that section. Lava damage, who'd have thought? You're gonna need that. Maybe super cold, whatever. But the fact that it has just tons of different things, like I'd be surprised if door strengths or ACs aren't part of that, or hit points, for shoddy craftsmanship or whatnot, and just things that you would probably find on like the back of the DM screen that comes with certain sets and everything. All the different like quick reference bits that you need to find. Like, this is going to be probably the bread and butter of this book for me. Now, don't get me wrong, the rest of the book is going to be great and give a lot of insight to a lot of different things as well. But I think that is the thing that I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good chapter, and I'm excited to kind of hear more about it
Mhm.
this coming week as they start releasing more information. They also have a full chapter on bastions,
Yes.
which we'll talk about here shortly. Um, then they have a massive chapter on magic items. Um, it is like over, I think they said over 400 magic items.
Yep.
They've added several. They said they've every single one has gotten a look at the very least. Some may be tweaked more than others. There are lots of new ones. They said especially there's a lot more common magic items, which I really like. I really like some of those tiny things, or the less powerful things. They're very fun to give, especially in earlier levels, or just have about existing in the world. So that's really cool. They have more. They said they had more guidance on magic item pricing,
Yes.
which is very good because it was a massive range, absolutely massive range in the original DMG. And one thing I'm very interested in hearing more about or seeing is they also have apparently a much more detailed uh, set of instructions for crafting
Yes.
magic items. because as you know, the player's handbook does have more in-depth crafting stuff for some of the basic materials and for like potions and scrolls, but the DMG will actually have the magic item version of that, and they said it goes a lot more in depth than what we have right now. So I'm excited to see, what kind of stuff is in the DMG, the new DMG for the crafting piece of the magic items as well.
Yeah, magic items have always been one of my favorite things to look at just because it stokes the imagination a lot. It really kind of, pokes and prods, and you look at something and you can try to figure out how you would use that. That doesn't obviously translate exactly into what your players would do, but just classic example, the immovable rod is something that can be used for a multitude of things. And I think my players might have one or two of them yet, but it hasn't presented the best scenario for them yet. But they have it if they need it. The fact that they have a bunch more like, common items and kind of trinkety things and stuff makes me really, want to dig in and throw a bunch of those out. My players right now are pretty, loaded with magical items. So, maybe we'll wait for the next campaign for this, but some of those things I've got to litter in because I'm already looking forward to just, this thing sounds really cool. Maybe they'll use it once or twice, whatever. Here, have this, do this, throw this away. So the fact that the things that they already have were looked at and I'm assuming improved upon or at least clarified, which is what they've done with a lot of the spells in the player's handbook, then, the same sort of paths going through magic items is just so much more of a blessing so that, you really know what your limits are and what you're going to be using it for.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then kind of even just adding on to that, one of the last big things of the new DMG is, I think, probably going to be my favorite, or at least a close second to the little DM's toolkit, which is the D&D lore glossary.
Oh,
There is a
definitely.
massive lore glossary now, and they just say for DMs who love the swaths of lore established in the last 50 years, there's an entire chapter dedicated to a lore glossary. It acts as a quick reference guide to the most famous characters, magic items, and key concepts that define the world of D&D. There's also a whole chapter devoted to cosmology in D&D, making it easier than ever to reference and incorporate the multiverse into your campaign, along with stunning artwork. And similarly, there's a lot more artwork added in general, just like the player's handbook. They reference that there are
Mhm.
way more magic items that have their art for them, which is super cool because I love seeing what the magic items actually look like. But in general, like this to me is super exciting because one, I started in 5e and I don't have conception for a lot of the lore of the famous places, locations,
Mhm.
pantheons, multiverse stuff in D&D. I mean, they've only recently really made the multiverse a much a stronger, broader concept in
Oh,
5e, just in
and
the last few years.
And speaking of, they did mention in the video that the multiverse is fully the world of D&D now. Because
Yes.
before the different campaign settings and stuff, they were their own separate things. But with fifth edition, especially with this new Dungeon Master Guide, they are officially saying that everything is part of the Dungeons and Dragons multiverse, meaning even your homebrew worlds, like everything is all part of this. So, uh, any DM out there who says, no, you can't use that species or whatever in my game. Ha, well, it exists. So maybe you can. I don't
If
know.
you're nice. If
I,
you
I'm,
ask nicely.
I'm just not a fan of being on like, oh no, Warforged can't exist here. This is a fantasy world. Well, everything does. It's fine.
um, the thing I'm really excited about is that I do have a homebrew world, but I adopt most of like the D&D pantheon and planes and that sort of thing
Mhm.
for the world itself. So being able to read more about the pantheon of D&D, about some of the big lore characters, especially about the planes, the elemental planes, the
Yes.
Feywild, the Shadowfell, all these different ethereal maybe plane of existence, all these different uh, kind of non-material plane things, either whether it be the the D&D, the deities that surround it, or the other planes of existence that might come into play. I'm very excited to read about the lore of all these so that I can incorporate that and have my game be richer for
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Especially, when you get up into those higher levels and plane jumping is going to start being a thing, having more information about it is always a plus. Like it just helps with your description and your imagination on top of that, because you can always build more and more off of what's given to you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'll be a very, very cool chapter for
Hmm.
sure. And then finally, rounding out the DMG is something they seem very excited about. There is a whole mess of tracking sheets that they have created for a plethora of things throughout all the chapters of the DMG, such as ways to organize and track your campaign info, NPC pages, where you could just pull out a fresh page, write down a name and a few, identifying features and such. Settlements, cities, bastion tracking sheets,
Hmm.
which I know for sure that I will be using because I'm hoping they integrate it into D&D Beyond Bastions as a thing within the website where players can then have a tracking sheet that's digital, right? And goes with it. But there will be those magic items, party composition, backstory, conflict, session planning sheets where you can just write out, here's my session for the night, here's the beats I want to hit, etc.
Hmm.
And these will all be downloadable as well. So you'll be able to download them from, I assume, D&D Beyond when they go live, so that you can print out and make as many copies of these as you want. But I think it's a really cool thing. I'm all for tracking sheets. I know some people really love the pen and paper aspect of the game, and or have your binder or your notebook, but if you have them digitally, being able to use those, hopefully they'll be easily form fillable PDFs or just integrated directly into D&D Beyond. They've been talking about having better DM tools for a
Hmm.
long time. I would love to see them deliver on that in the next year, and maybe have this kind of be a good starting ground for it, in that where you're managing your campaign and having a whole separate button for tracking sheets that you can then just start creating and building
Hmm.
upon. So it's a good idea. It's a very good idea. And I think especially for newer DMs, because remember, there's like, we will get stuff out of this, no question. But this is built for players, or for people who want to move from player to DM, or from people who want to DM and have that creative outlet, right?
Yeah.
So having this type of stuff to get them going and set them on a path is a very good thing to have.
Yeah, and with all those handouts and everything as well, and trackers and stuff, I really think that anybody who looks at DMing as like incredibly daunting, this kind of quantifies some of the stuff that you have to do. And granted, you don't have to use any of the trackers at all. You can only use some of them depending on what you need, or how you organize your thoughts or anything like that. But the fact that the tool is there is the thing that's important. And again, I think they're really focusing on the best possible way that they can get a DM to learn how to play, be comfortable with running a session and everything like that with this DMG. And the fact that they've added this entire section of tools, along with, of course, chapter 3, which we will probably not shut up about over until the book's release. So there's your warning. Um, but the fact that they have all these tools and everything to use, I think is just a huge testament to their goal of making this a much better version than what came out in 2014. Yeah.
I completely agree. I'm very excited. I think this is definitely my most looked forward to book of the three,
I mean,
personally.
me too. And it's not like I'm a forever DM or anything, but this is just such an upgrade that I personally think it's a good idea for everyone to at least, take a big deep dive into it, if not get it. Because you know, when I started DMing and stuff, it made me a better player. And, you know, one, being able to understand that mindset of, you know, the work that goes into it, the things you need to do, and especially to try to pick up those breadcrumbs that the DMs are leaving around for you to, you know, follow their stories and everything. But even more so, you know, having an understanding of the mechanics and what it takes to run the game makes you, one, appreciate your DM a ton. But again, even more so, just having a better sense of the game itself. So, like I said, I recommend really looking into the DMG when this one comes out, because I think it's going to be beneficial for every kind of player that there is.
Yeah, I'm very excited. And to that point, let's go back and talk about the one chapter that we did not cover yet, and that is the Bastion chapter. And they actually did release they talked about Bastion some in the long video, but then they released a separate shorter video talking specifically about Bastion. So just as a concept, if you there was a Unearthed Arcana during the playtest period that was pretty much just about Bastions. And they said that that was basically kind of just a taste, because
Mhm.
Bastions are an entire chapter. Like, they really went all in on this system. Obviously, it's optional because it's in the DMG, but it is a very large system that they wanted to integrate very strongly and have lots of really cool options for if it is something you want to adopt for
Yes.
your game. So essentially, basic info. Um, Players get their Bastion starting at level 5. They said they wanted it to be a fairly low bar so players could get started fairly quickly. You know, you've had a little bit of adventuring, you know your characters, you've got some levels under your belt, you've got some money under your belt, maybe a little bit of notoriety and such. So it starts at level 5. Um, there are kind of an endless amount of cosmetic things that you can do with it, bedrooms, bathrooms, you know, the different just like normal dining hall, normal
Hmm.
facilities. But then there are also 29 special facilities that are available for your Bastion. A Bastion gets 2 at level 5, a third and fourth at level 9, a fifth at 13, and a sixth at 17. So very, very customizable. And all these special facilities have an actual mechanical value that lets you do something. And you do something on Bastion turns. And
Yep.
Bastion turns are something that I think they recommended like once every 7 days of game time. You can tell your players to take a Bastion turn.
Yeah. In
But these
game
are,
time.
yes, in game time. But obviously that is completely up to the DM for the timing of that. And then on your Bastion turn, there's a number of different orders you can give your Bastion: craft, empower, harvest, maintain, recruit, research, and trade. They even talked about how, you know, if people are sick or you can't have a session or something, now with this system, you can say, that's okay, take a Bastion turn, right?
Hmm.
Because these are much more player driven things than DM driven things. It's basically DM oversight over a largely player driven system. And so it's very exciting. They said a lot of the special facilities are customizable to your needs, your looks, the players wants. And there's just tons of stuff. Obviously, there's the tracking sheets as well, so each character can have one of those. There's tons of different random events that the DM can either pick or roll on that can happen to bastions on their bastion turns, and potentially players will then have to make decisions about what happens. And we don't know full on the details yet. It's possible like players will even get to interact or roll some dice or something if a bastion's attacked, right? And they have defenders, so they may have a certain amount of things, or they may have a better chance at defense
Hmm.
or loss, depending on how they built their bastion and how that goes. So there's a lot of really cool stuff. They even listed off some of the special facilities, and I'm not going to list all 29, but you know, cool things like, you know, arcane study, armory and barracks, the garden. They talked about a
Hmm.
library, a demi plane, a
Teleportation
pub.
circle.
Yeah, observatory, which sounds super
Trophy
cool.
archive.
Theater, stable, laboratory. Like there's tons of really cool things. I can't wait to dig in to see what they do, and I'm sure my players are going to be super excited to do this system since they've already several of them have like a home base or homes, and being able to then kind of convert those into this bastion system and put some actual structure around it
Yeah.
and some mechanical meaning, I think is going to be super cool.
So a couple things too. They did mention that uh, all your players can share into one bastion if they want to. So, like if they have like their own keep, they can each have their own kind of areas and stuff and, work together on that. They can have separate ones. So, it's not entirely like, okay, you get a bastion and you get a bastion and you get a bastion. Well, it is that, but they don't have to be separated and, they can tie them together, work them together, however, whatever makes sense for them. If you have some warlock who wants his own, away from everybody else, that's great. Meanwhile, the paladin and the cleric, both of them worship Bahamut. They're going to work on a bastion together. That can work too. However you want it to play out. One of the best things is that their player character doesn't need to be anywhere near the bastion at all. So they can still be out adventuring on various, planes of reality and stuff, but the bastion's going to keep humming on and kind of moving forward. That's why it has its own kind of timetable on what they do. And the fact that, whatever orders you give is kind of what's going to be happening. So you don't have to worry about your player, jumping back in every 7 days and saying like, hey, recruit some people. Okay, catch you later. And, leaving and then coming back in the next 7 days. Hey, trade some stuff, whatever. And then coming back, all that. Don't have to worry about that. So they've got it set up so that it is really kind of its own unique thing that can tie into the, your game and your sessions. And I love that. When I first heard about this, I honestly thought it was going to be like garrisons from World of Warcraft. But then the video that came out is a lot more detailed and seems like it's actually a lot more fun than what that turned out to be. And of course, they're entirely different games anyway, so that doesn't matter. But overall, like it seems like it's going to be a pretty cool system. And I'm, looking forward to learning more about it and especially getting that chapter of the book to, see what there is and dig in more into it, because I'd love to be able to give my players something more than just, the house that they got as a reward for saving the city. It'll give them something more to kind of control, contribute to. And especially with the way that the story is kind of ramping up, I think it'd be neat for them to have like more of like a kind of, strongholded areas with different things set up for them to, help kind of prep the world for. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool.
I also love the idea that this is something that we can do off session because like for me, we play every other week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that this could be something that's just like on the off week, just to kind of keep things going, keep the ideas rolling, keep, people kind of in the moment in the setting. I say take a bastion turn, right? And then all of a sudden we start talking about that through Discord. And that keeps the players kind of interested and keeps them kind of in the game, right? Even on the off week,
Mm-hmm.
as something that they can be thinking about, and something they can be doing. So I really like that aspect of it too.
Yeah, same here.
Whew. All right. So that is what we got. Lots of really interesting stuff. Lots of stuff we're excited about. There's going to be more coming at the DMG over the next few weeks, and we're excited to talk about all that stuff and bring that to you. But let's kind of shift a little bit from the Dungeon Master side and shift a little bit more to the player side. Obviously, with the 2024 Player's Handbook coming into existence, a few things have been streamlined. One of them is subclass levels. So in the 2014 Player's Handbook, there are multiple different levels you get your subclass. Some get it right away at level 1, some get it at level 2, some get it at level 3. They have streamlined this for the 2024, where every single class gets their subclass at level 3. This makes sense in some ways. Standardization can be very helpful from a design and a mechanical perspective. It can also be helpful for power balancing and all that sort of thing. But for certain classes, it also introduces a little bit of a conundrum. Those specifically, well, really specifically, are Cleric and Warlock, but also to a small extent, Wizards and Paladins.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a little bit about this. What our thoughts on this are, how is a good way to handle subclasses starting at level 3 from a DMing and player perspective when just on the surface level you look at that and go, I have powers, but I don't know who I'm getting them from until level 3. I have divine powers, but I don't know where they're coming from until level 3. I'm a paladin, but I haven't sworn my oath until level 3, or I'm a wizard that doesn't know what he is until level 3, right? Some of those are fairly easy to talk about and explain away. Some of them are a little harder. So let's talk a little bit about this, and Ben, we'll start with the easy ones, with the paladin and wizard stuff. But first, we can start with the very easiest way to deal with this, and that is starting your game at level 3.
Oh my gosh, you mean we don't have to deal with this at all as a problem if we so choose?
Correct. You can start your one shot, or you can even start your campaign at level 3. There are a few good advantages to this. Number one, we've talked about this. Level 1 and to a little bit of a lesser extent, level 2 are extremely deadly. Probably the most deadly levels in all of D&D, because of how easy it is to accidentally kill player characters, or purposely kill player characters. They're very deadly levels. The 2024, they're a little better because there's more things to do built in. There's more bonus actions and stuff. So a level 1 character in 2024 is a little more interesting, right, than a level 1 character in the 2014 side of things. So that's good. It's good that they're a little more interesting things. But and it's sometimes is a good thing to start at level 1 or 2, especially with new players, so that you do not overwhelm them with too many things at the same time. But if you're playing with a party that has played before, level 3 is actually a very good starting point, because number one, you have several things you can do now, especially in combat. You don't run out of resources instantly after like a single encounter. And again, for this, the 2024 version, you get to pick your subclasses, and that so you can easily work those into a backstory right away. Have all those decisions made right away. So there are a lot of advantages to level 3, but it's not necessarily the default for everybody.
Yeah.
There are reasons not to do it.
Yeah, very true. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the different classes and kind of figure out the best way to, I don't know. I don't think justify having a subclass at 3 makes sense or anything, but definitely if you're really tying it into stories and not just looking at it mechanically as, okay, well, you get your subclass at 3, but you really want to RP it and kind of bring that into the backstory and play it through. Because there are going to be times where it's just like, oh yeah, well, this is just what I'm going to pick then. And if your player knows exactly what sort of subclass they want to pick, then you can always just tie it in early if you want to. You just won't have the specific subclass until then. That's not a big deal. If I were to play a warlock and know, hey, you know what? This archfey subclass looks really great. Oh, we're starting at level 1. Well, can we theme this until level 3 that it's going to be, hints that it's going to be the archfey or whatever? Simple as that. That's the easiest way that you can just possibly go into it if you know that that's what you want. But if you're looking at different classes, you can just easily justify it as I'm a wizard, I'm learning different types of magic. You know, my character really likes blowing stuff up, so they're going with evocation wizard. This is the way we're going to go. That's the right one,
Yeah.
right? Evocation.
I think wizard honestly makes the most sense because you're trying things out before you specialize, right? And wizard was level 2 previously.
Yeah.
Now it's just one level further. I think that one's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I don't have a huge problem with that. Wizards specialize, you're learning a bunch of stuff, and it takes you a bit to settle on kind of what's your focus going to be.
Yeah. Paladin, I think, is pretty much right there with, easiness for explanation. Because, yeah, I want to be a paladin, but I'm going to go through, I'm going to learn the tenets of whatever my god or goddess's religion is, the different aspects of it as you're going through learning how to, cast magic, wield a weapon, whatever, depending on which way that you're going. And then as, part of your final, hey, I am a full on paladin now at level 3, you take your oath. That's the path that you're going to be set on. And you know what it is based on the previous training that you've had. It's just simple as that.
And that one's easy because paladins normally took their oath at level 3 before. Like it's not a massive change. There are obviously some extra things that have been added to the paladin class, but that's a very easy transition point, right? Our big ones are clerics and warlocks.
Yeah,
who were very much in the 2014 from the beginning. You knew what you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Personally, though, with Warlock, I think it's really fun and kind of leans into it if you don't fully know what's going on. Like, you're going to play a Warlock, great. That's awesome. But run the character as someone who is, hearing mysterious voices and, learning that they're having these magical abilities and like kind of being drawn by them, kind of like the same way that I would do with a sorcerer, finding out that like a draconic sorcerer or something, as you're growing up and living life, you're learning, oh, I have this thing in my background that's giving me these magical abilities. That's really cool. Like, basically the way I look at it is a sorcerer is like a mutant in the Marvel universe. Once they hit a certain age, you start getting powers and growing and learning more about yourself and everything. A warlock, I think, is kind of similar because you're falling into this magical world and taking your steps, and you might not really know where it's coming from or what's going on until something's presented to you. And at that point, as the DM, this is how you tie in that character as being a warlock, is you need to give them an offer of something that they are going to take, that patron is able to exploit in some way. Whether, it could be a mutual thing, like a more symbiotic relationship. It could be something that is very simple as, revenge, or trying to bring a loved one back, or, just I want power for power's sake. So giving them kind of that taste of what they can do and seeing how they RP those first 2 levels and play it, you can really, twist around and play with it with, what you want to go with. And if you want, if the player agrees with it, you can actually choose what their patron would be and make that offer. If they don't like that, then maybe present them as a unique soul or something that has the interest of all these, extra planar beings, and maybe have multiple offers and they have to choose their one pact. There's a few different ways that you can really kind of go with this so that the player has that agency and that choice if they want to actually go with it or completely, dissolve themselves of some sort of deal with the patron that they don't want.
Yeah, I really love the idea of that. If your backstory is more geared towards this is happening over time, I'm not sure why this is happening, or the whole, mysterious entity, and more is revealed, right, as you go along up until you hit level 3, where the grand reveal happens, right? You could also, it'd be very easy if the player has in mind the pact direction they want to go.
Yes.
It would be very easy from level 1 to just say that's what you got, right? You just treat level 3 as a power upgrade. Because at level 1 you get stuff, you get warlocky stuff, right? You don't get specific pack stuff, but it could just be you play it as that's just who it is, just like 2014 Warlock,
Yeah.
right? They know who it is. They know the player knows what pack they're going to go at level 3, so you just treat that as it is from the beginning.
Or even more so, it's the trial period that the player's going on so that their patron actually wants them. They're proving their worth to the patron.
Yes. Before they give, the patron is willing to give them more power. They start off small. They have to prove themselves. They do XYZ. So yeah, I think it's a really easy way from a warlock standpoint of treating that. Cleric, on the other hand, is a bit different. Obviously, I'm praying to something.
Yeah.
And something is giving me powers. That's definitely a little bit weirder than the whole warlock thing. Obviously, you can do the start level 3 thing. Obviously, you can do the I know what my divine domain is going to be from level 1. The player is already set on that. And then you just go from there and your power increases as you level, just like before. It's as simple as that, right? However, if you don't, that's where it gets maybe a little trickier from the story, because unlike warlock patrons, gods are usually more specific and more directed. Like most gods are just not going to be like, I'll just give you powers, right? They want the worship, they want the allegiance and such. One thing I saw that I thought was super interesting that I did not know about, in one of the comments on a video about this, was someone who said, in first and second edition of AD&D, clerics technically didn't need a god until level 5. Their level 1 spells were based on belief alone. Their level 2 spells were based on knowledge of the divine. Level 3 through 5 spells came from a servant of a god, and level 6 and 7 spells came from the gods themselves. It's actually a very old concept. I did not know this. I thought that was super interesting. Whereas the level 1, I pray and I just have enough faith, essentially. I just believe there is divine, or I believe in the higher purpose. I believe in the gods, and I believe enough that through that belief, I am granted these minuscule powers, right? And as my belief grows, I begin to learn more about them. And again, that's where the knowledge comes in. Knowledge grows, the belief grows, the powers grow. And at that point, the gods are kind of interested. The beacon has been lit, right? And Gondor calls for aid. The beacon's been lit, and so the gods are like, oh, look, there's someone who has a strong belief in the divine. They are learning about the divine, and now it's up for the gods to start sending their emissaries or having chance encounters with the player to see if there is alignment, right? For the specific belief set. And so from there, the player can then, if the player has not decided from level 1, the player may then choose what god to really fully put their faith and belief in. And then again, their power grows. So I think there is a lot of really interesting role play potential for that. More so in a lot of ways than in 2014, because even in 2024, if you know what you're doing, you just start with that and act like it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like there's zero reason you can't do that. always get powers at level 1. But I think in the case of I don't know which subclass I'm going to go to, leaves introduces some very interesting potential role play possibilities. I like I said, when I just went through, I love the idea of that cleric who is finding the divine as they go before settling on a god or pantheon that kind of fits their personality and their morality and their moral compass.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a really interesting take and way to go about. Um, and on top of that too, you can really again kind of drive or work with your player to see what sort of domain they would like to go in based on how they're playing their character. If there's someone who's constantly pushing to heal everybody, to revere life, to push that sort of idea and mentality through, then have them look into the life domain. Maybe some traveling holy man from whoever is around and sees them performing a cure wound spell, and they knock on the door and have, would you like to hear about our Lord and Savior, whoever, there's something like that you can do. Or if they come from like a war torn background or something, maybe they're looking more into the whatever the war domain stuff is, like guiding bolt or shield of faith, or I mean, those are all kind of more higher level stuff, but look at how they're playing, what they're doing, and the choices that they're making, kind of from the beginning, to really help the player, view different possibilities for what they like, especially since it's pretty much right from level 1 where they choose if they're looking for like, more the protector and the thaumaturge with the 2024 rules. So if they know that they're going to be going into, I want to swing a weapon and wear armor, that leads you down a path that kind of might cut out some of those other domains just based on that. Versus if they're going more towards the thaumaturge version of it, they might be looking more at spell casting and, what are we looking at with this? What domains kind of fit with that play style? And it opens them up to, not locking in right away. And it's something that, again, we've talked about with, first, second level players, getting them a feel and helping them kind of figure out what they want to do and how they want to play that character. Because, I'm pretty sure we've said it before, but sometimes you don't really fully know what that character is going to be and how they're going to act until you start playing them. You can have a plan figured out, weeks in advance, and saying, I'm going to go through with this. I'm going to make sure that I, take the subclass. I'm going to main that class all the way to level 20 and everything. And then 4 sessions in, you find out, oh, I'm not the edgy loner type. I'm actually someone who's like, or, my character is really into like supporting the team and doing what they can with that. I think that I would actually switch and go this way with this domain because I want to protect my friends as opposed to running in and beating up the bad guys right away. So, it gives them that time to grow. It gives you as a DM a chance to kind of offer these different domains based on what they said, and also to, find the appropriate, deities that go with them as well, because not, every war domain cleric has got to follow like Bahamut or something. They could follow something different in the pantheon. I don't know enough about the general pantheon to pull out more examples, but you get the idea.
Which we will once the freaking lore glossary chapter of the new DMG comes.
Yes, we will. Again, can't wait for the DMG. So yeah, some people might see this as, oh, well, I don't get my domain right away. I see it as a lot of character growth, character building, and a fun chance at role play.
Yeah, opportunity and possibility.
Yes. It all comes down to how you frame it. If you frame it as, oh, this sucks, you don't know what's going on. Okay, we're just going to go, this is what you want, versus let's wait and see. Let every character have that chance to, play through, see what they like, and then choose their subclass, like not even just these four that we're talking about, where they previously had it in earlier versions of, or earlier levels in the 2014 version. You know, as a bard, who knows? Maybe I find out that as I'm playing through, I'm dancing a whole lot. And I never thought College of Dance would be the way that I would go for my character. But look at this. It's what I would like to do. It fits with the style that I want to play with. Same
Yeah.
goes for these.
Mechanically, it makes a lot of sense. There are uh, there are some characters where it's just like you're making very big decisions at level 1.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're not an experienced player or if you're a new player, that could be a very big decision that you might not be happy with later. Whereas by level 3, you probably know your character a little bit.
Yeah.
You've had some time with them. You've kind of had time to craft the identity and figure out kind of what your character might be doing, or maybe it's based on the circumstances that your character's been put into throughout the sessions in level 1 and 2. So I think we should look at this standardization of level 3 as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Definitely.
Not that you can't treat it like you did before, because if you know what you want, it's very easy to treat it like you did before. You just get it a little later, right? But for not, I do think it's a good thing for new players, and I think it does open up that opportunity and possibility for deeper and more interesting roleplay.
Yes, completely agree. And I mean, yeah, my characters in my campaign are, I think, 14 now. I'm looking forward to the new campaign just to see how this all plays out from level 1 again. Don't get me wrong, having a blast with what we're doing. We're going to get to 20. We're going to do this. But that doesn't mean that I can't, start thinking about the next campaign already, because I already have some ideas.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And speaking of that, it is almost time to talk a little bit about that. But first, we wanted to do a quick shout out for those of you who like Critical Role, or even who don't necessarily watch Critical Role but love animated things. The Legends of Vox Machina Season 3 is now out on Amazon Prime, and the first episode of that season is actually free to watch on the Amazon Prime YouTube. The first season, the first 2 seasons were very good. I think the second season in particular improves upon the first dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started, the first 3 episodes are out right now. I've started watching everything. They seem to just keep upping themselves,
Yes.
from the action to the actual animation quality to the story beats. This is getting into, for those who have watched through the first campaign of Critical Role, we are getting into some very epic, heartbreaking, emotional, dramatic, action-filled moments.
Yes.
And so I'm very excited to see how they play that all out in full, beautiful animated form.
Yes. We must say right here, if you haven't seen any of it yet, not kid friendly. So don't sit down with your kids and think, hey, this is a cool, fun fantasy D&D game. No.
It's a very much adult animated show.
Very much so. But that being said, if you're familiar with the first Critical Role campaign, it's still going to have surprises for you, because they can't do everything that they did in the campaign in the show. They have to, change things up, move things around, have different scenarios play out. And from the stuff that they changed, it's just more awesome storytelling from the same group that you love. So highly recommended. As someone who's seen the first 3 episodes, I am loving the season so far. And I am super, super, super pumped that it is back on again. And I hope they keep going for, I would think, at least, I'm assuming where this ends, at least another 2.
I think 2. Just seeing where we're at right now and knowing kind of what's left. I think they could probably do a really good job kind of wrapping this, like putting a bow on campaign 1 in 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And we obviously know that the first season of campaign 2 is already in the works, already being worked on right now. And that one holds a special place in my heart, because that was the one Critical Role campaign that my wife and I watched basically from the beginning to the end live or live-ish.
Yeah.
Through the whole thing. It's a very different story than Vox Machina. Much more
Very.
much more character driven, I would say, of a story. But very different characters, very different situation. I'm very excited to see that animated in the moments because it was a very special campaign as
Hmm.
well. So, but yeah, I'm hoping for two more. I think they could uh, do it justice with two more to finish out Vox Machina.
Yeah.
So, and if three is anything to go by, they're doing the heck of a job. So
Yep.
go check it
Exactly.
out if that's up your alley. And with that, that will bring our show to a close. But of course, before we go, we always like to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in our own campaigns. So, Ben, did you play since we last chatted?
Yes, actually, we did something that we haven't really done often, and that's play on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, usually it's Saturday nights, but because of life and everything like that, we got together yesterday afternoon and played some Dungeons and Dragons. And I got to tell you, it's absolutely going in ways that I am just pumped for with this storyline and just things that are being dropped and hinted at and stuff. Ooh, okay. So, where we last left off, they just found out that like this big giant, illusion was happening on this, blown up, broken down house and everything, and they were being tailed by someone in a hood and with a cloak. And then so they started, they clocked that, they knew that was going on. Our changeling hopped in a shop, let them walk past, changed their look, and then, started following behind so that they could kind of have flanking and everything. This person was catching up, and then finally the group just kind of stopped. And then it turns out it was their friend Matilda. So, yeah, love when that happens. I freaked them out for a little
Matilda's
bit.
back.
Yeah, Matilda Maplewood. She owns the magic shop in three towns. That if you go in the door in one of them, you're in the same shop in every single one because the shop is actually a pocket dimension of her creation. So fun stuff. But they talked about this like contraband that that was on the ship with them, trying to find out what they're doing with these fantasy drugs, as well as like some weapons and stuff. So they ended up deciding, okay, we're going to kind of wait and see what happens with it. We're going to, unload it from the ship, send it to the warehouse, on the docks, and then, see who picks it up, what happens. So I did a little stakeout and, some brutes came, from the, gosh, what's the best way to put it? I guess the gang or whatever. The bad guys in town. We'll just go with that. And my cleric, my keen mind cleric, did recognize one of them who was like kind of suspiciously lingering around the dock when the ship pulled in. So I was like, okay, it's definitely them. They ended up loading those crates onto two rowboats and started just rowing away. They thought they were going to be trailing them through town. So this kind of put a little bit of a wrench in some of their plans. So we had our bard polymorphed, grabbed the sorcerer, flew up and flew super high. I was watching him, see where they went. Turns out that they went into, the cliffside, really close to where this mansion was that they passed that had the illusion going on. And the funny thing is it looked like they just went right into the mountainside. So probably another illusion there. So they ended up going back to the manor and then, deciding, okay, we're going to figure out kind of what's going in. They walked in, didn't get hurt by all this, mana interference and static and lightning and stuff that's been, swirling around it. And they tried to determine, what was actually causing this illusion. And I had it so that something that, like this big going on, it wasn't just a simple, like, programmed illusion. It was an even bigger spell. It was anchored to an item, which was just one of the rocks, part of the rubble. And they did a detect magic and then just saw that glowing little rock right there. So they picked it up, put it in the bag of holding. So the illusion just stopped. So the manor is still like, broken, damaged, and everything like that because, an actual mana bomb went off. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to try to figure out, if there's any secret entrances, anything that's going on with that. And so they, kind of looked around, set off a trap or two, or no, just one, found another one, found a couple glyphs here and there. And also, there happened to be 3 mimics guarding the place that attacked them. So they had a little mimic fight, which is always fun. And then ended up finding the secret entrance underneath an altar and went down the stairs. That's where we ended the session. So yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it worked out
Cool.
timing wise pretty well. We probably could have gone a little bit longer, but if I'd introduced the new area, I'm like, nah, we're good here. This is a good stop.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could probably do a whole segment on finding the right stopping points, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, to make sure that that you are prepared, but then your session doesn't go crazy over, and they're just like, okay, let's get going. It's just like, guys, it's 11:58 right now.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do this.
Yeah. So overall, they have a couple decisions to make. One of them being, do they continue on the ship towards, their destination, or now that they met up with their friend Matilda, she can teleport them, but that still leaves the Paladins family behind. So they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with that, as well as, are we going to take care of all the stuff that's going on before we bring them back, keeping them safe and all this. So they've got that to kind of deal with, as well as they want to take care of the threats that are happening in this city first before they move forward, which is great because, illicit drug trafficking and stuff, not a good thing. Then also they found out some information that our cleric's father had, through the sending spell, sent them about this mob family in Ireland. That mysteriously they originally got their wealth from a diamond mine that had dried up, and now they're producing diamonds again. So something happened.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like the players have a lot to investigate.
Oh yeah. So once they get through with that investigation and everything, even another plot point too, since they're looking for these relics and stuff to, reinforce the barrier against the gods. They did find out that a lot of the dead ends that Matilda was researching ended up pointing to the library, which is the biggest library on the continent, which is
the library.
Yeah, that's why it's called the library, which is in the capital of Ireland, which is where they're going. So, that gamble to head there is paying off for them. So they're doing good.
Which library?
The
library.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
Very
excited
cool.
with
Very cool.
that one we were able to play because it's been a few weeks, but moving the story along and stuff. I've realized that, D&D has become a huge creative outlet for me. So being able to like kind of tell these tales and weave them with my friends and have fun with it is just, it brings such joy to me. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
How about you? What's been going on in the town?
So the last session we finished up the fancy party they were at. It started off fairly innocuous with them just kind of doing some post investigation. Some of them started trying to sneak around to different rooms of the mansion to try and hear what they could to try and figure more things out. The changeling knocked out the butler and stole his clothes so that he could move around more freely, which was interesting. It ended up that they snuck into an area of the house where none of the people were, but there were some very large guard dogs.
Ooh.
And it turned out that the dogs weren't just normal large dogs. The dogs breathed fire.
Oh.
And they did not know that.
That's a very good guard dog.
They got into an impromptu battle, and the druid having used Control Flame for snuffing flames out, decided to not do that this time and fan the flames further. So they started the
Ooh.
house on fire. They ended up taking quite a bit of damage, but they ended up killing the dog. And then they were kind of stuck in this wing of the house that is now like becoming more and more on fire. Uh, and so then it turned into a big, oh no, we have to escape and warn the other guests and such. And it turned into just this massive thing where the party ended of where like the wizard rogue was just messaging people, fire, there's a fire. Just like shouting into their brains.
That's
Then
awesome.
people started picking it up and running, and pandemonium broke out, and it was a very unexpected way for the party and the session to
Oh, I
to
bet.
end. But it feels like it ends up being a theme in my campaign that the party ends up burning something down. Like it's happened basically every campaign that the party will burn something down. The first campaign, it was a large chunk of a forest because they started a forest fire. Like there's just it's just become a theme. So I thought that was super funny. But there was some interesting information learned, uh, a lot of good role play, and I'm excited to see how they deal with the aftermath here in a few weeks when we get back together.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds like after chaos like that, it's, I mean, you just want to keep playing just to
Yeah,
see what the
that
fallout
was one of
is.
those where it's just like I looked at my watch and I was just like, oh, it is late. I have to find a stopping point.
Yeah, I do hate those so much. It's always either not enough time, or if you do go, it's just gonna have it be just way too long. Like, you never want to start a combat near the end of a session.
Yeah, yeah. That makes it really hard. So sometimes you got to make the call. But it was very good, and I'm looking forward to next session and seeing what they do.
Very cool.
And with that, that ends our show for this evening. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. We always have a great time chatting with each other, chatting to you about some of our favorite things. And if you want more of that, Ben, why don't you tell our listeners where we can be reached?
You bet. If you like this episode and you want to, hear more, best place to do it is on dndiscussions.com. You can find every single episode there, as well as your podcast player of choice. But the reason that you want to go to the website is because a link to our Discord can be found there. That's right. If you want to get in and chat with us, talk about what's going on in your games, submit some character art so we can take a look, and you're proud of your work and want to show it off, highly recommend it because we got some cool stuff coming in. Join us on our Discord. You can find that link again on dndiscussions.com. If you want to, keep a conversation a little bit more private, guess what? You can always email us. Send those to dndiscussions@gmail.com. We got a theme going here. And you'll be able to get that to us. We'll read it and respond. Or if you have any questions or something that you want added to the show, we can always do or find out that way. We love hearing everything you have to say. Also, you can always check us out on Blue Sky Social. The show is at DN Discussions. Ryan is at TBKZord, and I am at Ben Bumhofer. And then last but not least, if you're like, hey, I want to hear these guys play Dungeons and Dragons, well, you can hear one of us. I am currently on +5 to Hit. It is an actual play podcast. We are getting very close to the end of Rime of the Frost Maiden, and I know I've said that in the last 5 episodes, but it is actually things are becoming very imminent that it is very close to the end. So take a listen to that. We're having a lot of fun with that. And then once we're done going through the module, I think we're going to keep going for a while, maybe. I mean, it's kind of been discussed because our DM has plans for the characters, so we'll see what happens. But anyways, check out +5 to Hit. This show, though, thank you very much for listening. We appreciate all the support that everybody gives us, and all the kind words that everybody's been, leaving us on Discord. Those 5-star reviews that we can't get enough of. Hint, hint. And everything else. Ryan, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for going over everything this week with me and talking with me. And everybody else, until next time, roll high and be good to each other.
Take care, and we'll see you soon.